Hello, Packer fans, and welcome into PackersNews.com Facebook Live. I'm joined by Tom Silverstein here on a lovely Wednesday afternoon. I guess it's probably a little bit lovelier in Milwaukee where you are versus Green Bay where it's a little muggy, but that's okay. It's January.
Yeah, it's warmer here.
I'm sure it
You
is.
can see the sun is out.
Yeah, exactly. Giving you a nice little glow, bathing you in sunlight. It's very
Yeah.
poetic. I walked outside yesterday and I thought, you know what? This is actually not that bad. And then I looked and it was 11 degrees. And I was like, I've already been here too long. If 11 degrees is not that bad.
Yeah.
And so,
Big
anyway,
difference between 11 and like 3. People don't realize that.
there's a huge difference. 8 degrees worth. But Aaron Rodgers would call it Green Bay weather, perfect Green Bay football weather. But that being said, the Packers don't have to play this weekend, Tom. We get a bye week. Aaron Rodgers said today, this is nice. It's 12:22 on a Wednesday, and I'm going home. And we'll all take that. It's a well-deserved bye week because they are the number one overall seed in the NFC. So let's just kind of jump right into it. And if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. But before we get to the Packers specifically, Spoon, let's go over a little bit of the wild card weekend. I know we discussed this on the podcast. If you haven't listened to the Green 19 podcast yet from Sunday, go check that out. But if you didn't hear it, we're going to break it down for you right now. Which team are you watching the most as a potential divisional opponent for the Packers and the team you want to know about the most from this wild card weekend?
Well, the team I know about least is Philadelphia, but probably the game I'll be paying the most attention to is San Francisco, Dallas. I assume that's probably going to be in most people's are most curious to see. I think that's got the potential to be a really good game.
Mm-hmm.
And, ultimately, the Packers will probably face one of those two teams. And whether it's San Francisco next week or Dallas 2 weeks in the championship game, I don't know. Or divisional round. Well, it can't be in the divisional round, be in the championship game. I'm curious to see how both teams do. And then I'll watch the Rams and Arizona. Tampa Bay shouldn't have a problem with Philadelphia, but the Eagles are a tough team. I mean, they can run the ball. They're gritty. Played some tough games, so all the games should be pretty good.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions coming in about these matchups, so let's look at a couple of them here. Callum asked, are you worried about a possible matchup with the 49ers if we play them, Tom? I know he asked you the question, but I'm going to interject here first.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have told you and our colleague Ryan Wood a few times now, the 49ers are the team that to me is getting hot at the right time, and they look like they did in 2019 when they made that Super Bowl run. They're a sneaky good team right now, and they could sneak up and beat the Cowboys. Like you said, that's going to be a really, really good game. And they provide an interesting matchup for the Packers if they end up coming here next week.
Yeah, they do. I'm not as convinced as you are about them. I still think they're a little bit. I don't think they're as good as 2019. I think they have some weaknesses. I think they can be thrown on, and I don't think their running game is as great as it was back then. But they're a team that's been there, and Kyle Shanahan is always going to come up with very interesting game plans. They've got Jimmy Garoppolo, who doesn't really, bring a lot of confidence to me. So that's why I'm interested to see them against Dallas. Dallas is a really talented team. Their defense is playing really well. They don't have a run game, but they can throw it. So it's a really good matchup.
Mm-hmm. And Craig points out that the Cowboys and the Buccaneers are who scare him the most in the playoffs. I know you are really high on this Cowboys team. Is that who would you be more scared of to face in the NFC Championship, the Cowboys or the Buccaneers?
If I were the Packers, I'd be worried about Tampa Bay first. I think that's the hill they have to climb or clear until they do that, it sort of seems like, or Tampa Bay is eliminated, then it sort of reminds me of what the Cowboys were to the Packers in the 90s. And until they could get past the Cowboys, they just weren't good enough. And then all of a sudden, 96, Cowboys beating them in the regular season and lost in the playoffs, and that was it. And they cruised to the Super Bowl. So I think I still think Tampa Bay is the team that is best equipped to beat the Packers.
Jeff said that he's tired of hearing about coming and playing in the cold. That's just not a thing anymore. Do you think that's fair to say?
Depends. I think for really good teams, it's not. For Tom Brady, that's not a big deal. He's played in cold games, and the Buccaneers proved last year that they could do it. Teams that are built tough defensively, I think they're good in the cold.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the 49ers would have a problem. The Cowboys offense could have a little bit of a problem because they haven't been running the ball very well. Right. Dak Prescott, I don't think, has played in a lot of cold games. Right. So I think it's an advantage with them.
Yeah.
What's that?
They play in a dome.
Yeah.
When they are at home.
Yep. So I think they could be affected. I think the Rams would be affected. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Tampa, San Francisco, or Philadelphia would.
Mm-hmm. Curtis asked the question that a lot of people are probably asking this week, including Matt LaFleur, who are you starting at right guard and right tackle? This line gets a little bit of a shakeup because so many guys are coming back. It's a good problem to have, but it does it seem like an actual issue to decide?
A lot depends on Billy Turner. I mean, for sure, Bakhtiari's starting at left tackle. I think Myers is starting at center. I don't think there's any question about that. The next question is Billy Turner playing. Mm-hmm. If he's ready to play, I would play him. And I think I would probably put him at right tackle just because he hasn't practiced much lately and everything is just more normal for him at right tackle. And then I'd play Patrick at right guard and I'd go with that. And that's a pretty formidable offensive line, provided everyone plays like they're healthy.
We should note that the Packers placed Lucas Patrick on the reserve COVID-19 list today and signed Ben Braden to the practice squad. That being said, obviously we hope that Lucas Patrick feels okay and is not suffering from too many symptoms, but this would be the week to get it, right? You're not playing this weekend. You have 5 to 10 days to come back. So plenty of time to come back before that first playoff game at Lambeau next week. But Lucas Patrick was placed on the reserve COVID-19 list today. Spoon, correct me if I'm wrong. He's the first player they've placed on the list in a few days.
Yeah, so Billy Turner was the last person to be put on it. And he came off today, and they would have not had anybody on the list except now Patrick's on it. So, I mean, this is going to happen almost. The fact that they went, how many days has it been now? I sort of lost track, but I think it's been like 5 days since they had anybody added to the list. Uh-huh. That's remarkable. Mm-hmm. And I think you're seeing that around the league, and guys are coming back pretty quickly from it. So, like you said, if there's a time to get it, maybe they should expose everybody this week. And then I shouldn't joke about that because that's a serious health issue. But, it's not going to be, I doubt it's going to be a problem for him to come back.
Right, exactly. We don't want to promote, what was it Antonio Brown's girlfriend was wanting everyone to do last year? Like lick airport toilet seats.
Oh my God.
It's an idea. We're going to get off.
The vaccinated guys are being allowed to come back pretty quickly. And so It's very unlikely they miss games.
Right. let's go down through here. Mike wants to talk about Z-Dog at practice today. That's huge, Spoon. Zaider Smith finally back at practice for the first time since week 1, I believe. It's been a while.
Yes. He's had, I believe, 2 days of practice since the start of training camp. And today would be the 3rd. So, yeah, it's been a long road back for him. I'm with LaFleur about taking it with a little bit of grain of salt, like not getting too excited about it. I thought he brought up a point I hadn't thought about, is that he has barely played a snap or practiced a snap in their defense. He didn't play in Joe Barry's defense. And sure, he's gone to meetings and everything like that, but I still think there's some aspects of it that he's not going to be familiar with. I think what they do is, if he's available, is just use him as a 3rd down rusher, and that's it. They'll fill in otherwise and come up with a package for him to be in and tell him go to the quarterback, and that's it.
And that was my next question, was if you can let him practice today, which he did, and tomorrow. They don't practice Friday, if I understood the schedule correctly. So if he practices today and tomorrow, and then gets 3 days of practice in next week, how comfortable do you feel putting him in versus possibly, I think it would be the 49ers or the Eagles? There's a question down here about who they would face and win, so we'll get to that in a minute. But how comfortable do you feel putting him into a playoff game next weekend?
Well, one, you have to see how he handles these practices. It wouldn't shock me if there was a setback, and you're dealing with a lower back injury, and but let's say there's not. If he can get through a padded practice on next Wednesday, they'll practice. I'm sorry, next Thursday, they'll practice in pads. Mm-hmm. If he gets through that, and the practices this week, then I would think there's a pretty good chance he'd play, and I'm sure he'd be on a snap count, just like Bakhtiari was and Myers was.
And that's a good point. Wednesdays are usually walkthroughs for the Packers. I know it's a bye week, but I want to see what he does tomorrow too. How much do they let him sort of practice with everyone else, or do they keep him in the pit by himself?
Yeah, I'll be interested if he takes on any 11 on 11. I don't think, my guess is they won't. My guess is this is the warm-up, and then they may end up practicing 4 days next week. Mm-hmm. They come back. It sounds like he's given them Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and then they come back Monday, and maybe they do a little bit of a practice then, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
Of course, it depends. It could be a Saturday game too, which would change everything as well.
Right. And so someone asked about Randall Cobb, but before we get into that, let's jump into a little bit of the schedule. Craig asked, how late do we know when and who the Packers play against in their NFC divisional matchup? Because of the playoff schedule, it could be, like Spoon said, a Saturday game. They would play the lowest remaining seed, if I understand that correctly. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be, here, I have the bracket pulled up here. Philadelphia plays Tampa Bay. 49ers play Cowboys. Cardinals play Rams. It would likely be the Eagles, the 49ers, or the Cardinals.
Or the Rams.
Or the Rams. Yes, I guess it could be the Rams. If you're saying Tampa beats Philly, Dallas beats 49ers, Rams beat Cardinals.
Yep.
Yeah. So it would be Eagles, 49ers, Cardinals, or Rams.
I think Craig's asking, when do they determine whether it'd be a Saturday or Sunday game?
Right.
And
well, would that determine on who they're playing? Because, for example, the Rams play the Cardinals on Monday night. So if they're facing one of those teams,
if San Francisco beats, if Tampa Bay beats Philadelphia and San Francisco beats Dallas, then they're playing San Francisco. If Philadelphia wins, they're playing Philadelphia. It doesn't matter. It'll only matter the Rams 49er game, Rams Arizona game only matters if Dallas beats the 49ers and Tampa Bay beats Philadelphia. Then it'll come down to the winner of the Rams Cardinals game.
That's a very good point. So we'll know by Sunday night. We'll have narrowed it down to either who they'll face or knowing it'll be the Cardinals or the Rams. You'll know that by Sunday night.
Yeah, and my guess is that so if they play the Rams or the Cardinals, it'll be on Sunday because they're not going to have that team play a Saturday game. It's playing Monday night.
Right.
So if the Packers play one of those two, it'll be on a Sunday.
Right. Matthew says, I hope we don't play Tampa Bay. Do you think we have a shot against Tampa Bay?
Well, in 2 weeks, they don't have to worry about that. In 3 weeks, they might. Sure, they have a shot. Absolutely. Tampa's had a bunch of injuries. They've been a little bit up and down, but they also have Tom Brady and a really good defense. So I don't know. I'd love to see that game. I really would. I think it'd be one heck of a game.
Yeah. Nicholas says, if Bakhtiari was fatigued after a few snaps, how can he be ready for a full playoff game? Granted, it wasn't just a few. It was, 27?
Yeah.
You can get by in a game with 40 to 50 offensive snaps. That's low, but you can do it. So I would say 27 is still a decent amount of snaps. Would you?
It's okay. But it's sort of like if you train for a 5K run and you've been on the treadmill or whatever for a while and you're kind of getting there, and then all of a sudden you run a 5K and the next week you need to run a 10K. Well, yeah, you're going to be kind of fatigued on that first run, but you're building up endurance as you go along. And I'm sure he's going to practice more than he did before the Lions game. And he's probably working on cardio as we speak. I think it's just I think the first time you put on pads and you actually play football, it's going to fatigue you. Now, I wouldn't rule out the fact that he could get fatigued in that first playoff game. Maybe they do have to go to Josh Nijman at some point. But this guy's a pro. He'll be ready. I mean, I'm sure he could have played through through the whole half, but they weren't going to let him do that.
Right. It sounds like it was sort of a mutual, okay, well, you're starting to get fatigued. Let's just go ahead. You've already gone over the snap count we had for you in mind. Let's go ahead and sit you down. Yeah. It wasn't like he couldn't keep going.
Yeah. So I get your point. And, it is possible that he could get fatigued in the divisional game. But by the time they get, assuming they get to the championship game, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. Let's just jump into one more topic here before we say goodbye. Jamie asked, what about Cobb? And then Bernard asked a little bit even more specific. Do you believe Cobb will make defenses play more honest because of his presence? Everything Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers have said, because Aaron Rodgers, simply have noted, gives the best injury reports nowadays. Mm-hmm. We've decided he's locked the doctor in the closet and he's making the calls. Everything LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers have said make it seem like Cobb will be back and ready to go full for the playoff games. Do you think that changes how defenses play this Packers offense? Or do you think that what Davante Adams and Allen Lazard have been able to do the past few weeks sort of overshadows what Cobb would bring?
I think the fact that MVS has been quiet the past couple of weeks is sort of a harbinger of Cobb coming in and taking over some of his snaps and having more of an impact. So I do think Cobb will be a big part of their offense. Now, by big, I mean equal to what he was doing before. He's still he's still limited. You want him to be in the slot, and you want him, third downs are good down for him, and you want matchups. And so I think they'll find a way to incorporate him. And I think he'd be a little bit of a challenge for defenses to handle.
Speaking of MVS, any new injury news? He left with that back injury versus Detroit. I think we said at the time we thought it was almost more preventative.
Yeah, I never heard one way or the other about it. He wasn't at practice today, right?
I don't believe so. No, I didn't see him.
So, no news on that. I think we'll know more next week.
Yeah. Last question here, also from Mike. Mike's gotten a bunch of good questions in here today. We'll close out with this one. Spoon, how would you compare this team with the team we saw in 2019 and 2020 as far as their focus on the final goal?
In terms of focus, I think they're all the same. I think LaFleur does a good job of getting his team ready. I thought last year they were really prepared and ready to make a run. And they did. They just couldn't get past Tampa. And I think each time they've played in the championship game, it's been a lesson. And I don't think they're any less focused or determined or more focused or determined. I really think it comes down to talent and execution, and generally comes down to a quarterback or someone making a big play when it counts, and or someone making a big mistake when it counts. So as far as focus, now everybody's focused when they get to the playoffs. I mean, it's a whole different animal.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this on the podcast too, that Matt LaFleur could end up being a factor in that. What you said, that you need the quarterback, you need to have another team make mistakes. What does the coaching do as well? So
that was a factor last year.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, so there were couple of decisions that didn't turn out for them.
Yeah, what has he learned from 2019 and 2020 that he might do differently this year? So
maybe kick a timeout for the end, maybe.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Not kick the field goal. We might have to ask him that next week. That could be a good question. Yeah. Maybe this week. Anyways, enjoy your wild card weekend. We still will do another Facebook Live on Friday, so we'll see you again before the weekend kicks off. But Spoon, I know we probably won't talk to you on Friday, so enjoy your wild card weekend. Hunker down. I've got some of the other girls that are here on the beat coming over this weekend. We are going to camp out with snacks and just watch all the games.
Nice.
Good weekend, doesn't it?
Have a good time.
Yeah, have to take some notes on who they might be facing. But thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for tuning in, for your questions. Stay tuned to PackersNews.com for full coverage as the Packers head into a well-deserved bye week before they kick off the playoffs. Thanks so much, guys.